Ever since he was a kid,
3 birds per net per 5 hours.
Eric Johnson,
And then some days we'll catch like 20 birds. So it really varies.
has loved birds.
Soft bags, they're breathable. It actually lowers the stress for the bird.
They're just always beautiful, and all of the migrants are coming back for the breeding season.
So this band has a unique identifier that only this bird will carry. I've always been interested in birds growing up. My mom and my aunt are bird watchers, and so we always had binoculars around, a bird book, and when I was about 10, I started just picking it up.
As Director of Conservation for Audubon Delta, his responsibility is to help protect birds in one of the most important locations for them in the world.
We're at the base of the Mississippi Flyway, right here along the Gulf of Mexico. So it is a major funnel zone for birds that are migrating north and south in spring and fall migration. Obviously, the Gulf of Mexico is a substantial migration barrier that birds have to either navigate around or go across. And Louisiana is right on the confluence of those two.
Every year, thousands of migratory birds, ranging from songbirds.
We have dozens and dozens and dozens of species of warblers and sparrows and tanagers and grosbeaks and orioles and buntings and so on and so forth. All these small little migratory birds. Many of them only weigh sort of the equivalent of like 5 pennies, right? And so they're making these incredible multi-thousand mile journeys throughout their life.
To shorebirds.
Louisiana is one of the most important places on the planet for colonial nesting coastal water birds.
Make the trip from the Arctic Circle to South America and back, using Louisiana as a crucial rest area.
The Gulf of Mexico is a substantial migration barrier that birds have to either navigate around or go across, and Louisiana is right on the confluence of those two decision points.
Over the years, however, the number of birds coming through has been declining, and not just here. An alarming study published in the journal Science discovered that the number of birds lost since the 60s was in the billions.
What it demonstrated is that about 3 billion birds have disappeared from our landscape, which is equivalent to about 30% of all of the birds in the US and Canada.
A warning sign that our environment is under serious stress.
Because they are at the sort of top of the ecosystem and ubiquitous, they serve as a really good indicator of our overall ecosystem health, and that overall ecosystem health affects us. If something is going wrong with birds, it's a really good indication that whatever we're doing to the environment is not sustainable.
Stress that without a healthy population of birds could get worse, as they perform a variety of important tasks for the ecosystem. Everything from planting.
They play an important role of dispersing fruit, dispersing seeds, things like that.
To pest control.
Birds are often top predators in their ecosystem, so they play an important role in regulating insect population.
Scientists say that there are many causes behind the decline, but the biggest threats are habitat loss and a changing climate, which has started interrupting migratory patterns.
We absolutely have seen changes both in the distribution of birds, so birds are shifting north on average, but we've also seen differences in the timing.
Something Eric says can have a major impact on the health of bird populations.
And that differences in timing is really scary in some cases because there's what we call phenological mismatch. Birds have evolved to schedule their migration to maximize their breeding success. So if birds are not able to shift their migration and the leaves are coming out earlier, the insects are coming out earlier, they've essentially missed the boat when they get here.
The responsibility to help learn about and save the populations that remain.
That's the female part of the duet. And the male does the kyo, kyo. Yeah. It has a partial preformative mold.
Okay.
And so these are the juvenile feathers, these are the replaced adult feathers. All right, I'll give you the R for recapture. Wing is 68.5.
Don't simply fall to Eric or professional ornithologists.
It's actually kind of interesting that it's potentially molting its R1s as well. Maybe we can make a note of that. Bird watchers are actually one of the most important pieces of information that we know about bird movements.
Bird watchers and enthusiasts have played
This will be another recap cardinal. Wing is 86.5. All right, 25.1. 39.3.
And continue to play a vital role.
Just a way to document the interesting pattern.
I've always been someone who preferred to be outdoors and barefoot, preferably in a tree.
For her whole life, Susan Edmonds has been a naturalist and an enthusiast of birds.
And there's something about them that's very uplifting, you know, that their flight and their beauty is just uplifting.
A volunteer for Audubon, she's known as a citizen scientist, someone whose love of birds has led her to do what she can to save them.
I'm what's called a nest box observer for prothonotary warblers. I work twice a week, a couple hours, twice a week I'm out and I'm observing the nest box.
And she's certainly not the only one.
Slide it open, and you can see the different layers of nest development. And we're going to take a look at the nest, if there's eggs and how many eggs there are. Also, we're looking to see if the parent birds are nearby calling. The parents will sometimes come and go from the box. It's an excellent way to observe them.
Keeping track of birds requires all sorts of observations, and the data collected by citizen scientists can be invaluable.
It's gonna be no pox, no poop, no blood, yes feather. Status will be normal.
I think it's really important that we have a lot of enthusiasts also that take that information and can make some real change in our lives that will benefit birds.
NNL. Wing is 68.5. The resident bird that lives here year-round, its average UV exposure is 12 hours, right? Lower in the winter, more in the summer. And most of those don't do these late winter molts. So we think this is a strategy that sort of correlates with migration. 24.2.
And even to the enthusiasts, those observations are pointing to the same thing.
I think that if you look at any of the data coming out, you can see that there is a problem. You can see, if you talk to your grandfather when he used to be a youngster, when they would watch flocks of birds fly over the, partially blacked out the sky.
For the last 8 years, I've seen far fewer robins, and the time that they arrive shifts too.
You can see less birds on the wires, less birds in the fields. I think we can all see it.
Yet despite the amount of decline, there's still time to turn it around.
I am someone whom my husband describes as incurably optimistic, and I think that we can, as individuals, make a difference, and this gives me hope.
We can make our green spaces greener. We can improve the quality of the habitats that we have the control over.
Planting native plants and creating habitat can go a long way, and while it may not bring back all the habitat we've lost, every bit helps.
We all know that habitat is so declining, and that's very sad. That is really sad. But as I said, studies are showing that small plantings can make a huge difference.
To ensure Louisiana's favorite visitors can keep coming back.
It's not a crisis today, it's not a crisis tomorrow, but we're seeing the indications that a crisis could be coming. And we want to be cognizant of that, and we want to do everything we can to prevent that from happening.
In Lafayette, I'm Daniel Phillips, KTC TV3.